The emergency landing alarm blared through the scout ship's cockpit as Lieutenant Adrian Mercer fought the controls. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the vessel shuddered violently, descending through Terevec's thick crimson atmosphere. System failure imminent. Brace for impact, the ship's AI announced with unsettling calm. Adrian gritted his teeth. Not dying today, not during a ceasefire. The scout ship slammed into the rocky terrain, metal shrieking as it carved a fiery path through alien soil before grinding to a halt. Silence fell, punctuated only by the hiss of cooling metal and Adrian's labored breathing. He performed a quick self-assessment. Bruised ribs, minor lacerations, but nothing life-threatening. The ship, however, was another story. The communication array was destroyed, the engine core damaged beyond his ability to repair. He was stranded on the disputed border planet, technically in neutral territory, according to the fragile 3-month ceasefire between humans and the Vexari. Perfect, Adrian muttered, gathering emergency supplies. The planet's twin suns would set within hours, and Terevec's nights were legendary for their brutal cold. He needed shelter. The landscape outside was harsh but hauntingly beautiful, jagged purple mountains cutting through copper-colored skies, strange crystalline vegetation catching sunlight in prismatic bursts. Adrian activated his tracker, scanning for suitable shelter within walking distance. A faint biosignal pinged on his device, registering neither as local fauna nor flora. Adrian hesitated, then moved toward it. Friend or foe, he couldn't ignore a potential survivor in this wilderness. He found her in a small ravine, surrounded by the smoking remains of what must have been a Vexari scout vessel. Her silver-blue skin was marred with deep lacerations, dark indigo blood pooling beneath her armored form. Even wounded, she exuded danger. The Vexari were legendary warriors, bred for generations to be the perfect soldiers, taught from birth that humans were beneath them. Her amber eyes flickered open as he approached, widening with recognition and disgust. The universal translator in Adrian's collar picked up her faint words. "Human," she hissed, attempting to reach for a weapon that wasn't there. "Leave me to die with honor." Adrian knelt beside her, assessing her injuries. "Your ship's destroyed. You've lost too much blood." The Vexari warrior attempted to push herself away, her face contorting with pain. "You're forbidden to touch me," she whispered, pride evident even in her weakened state. "By ancient law, human contact brings disgrace. I would rather die." Adrian understood the cultural significance. Vexari warriors considered human touch the ultimate contamination. Being tainted by a human would make her an outcast, stripped of rank and honor. "I'm Lieutenant Adrian Mercer," he said calmly, unpacking a medical kit. "And you'll die without treatment. What's your name?" Her eyes flashed with defiance. "Commander Calera Nixteris, 7th Elite Squadron." Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. "If you have honor, you will respect our ways." Adrian looked at the darkening sky, then back at the wounded warrior. In the distance, something howled. Terevec's native predators would be hunting soon. "Commander," he said firmly, "I respect your culture, but I won't watch you die when I can help." Before she could protest further, Adrian gently lifted her from the ground. She was surprisingly light despite her muscular frame and damaged armor. Her body went rigid at his touch, a small sound, half pain, half outrage, escaping her lips. "You condemn me," she whispered, her strength fading as consciousness slipped away. Adrian looked down at her face, seeing past the alien features to the person beneath. "Maybe," he replied softly, "or maybe I save us both." As Terevec's twin suns sank behind the mountains, Adrian carried the unconscious warrior toward his ship, a forbidden connection already forming between sworn enemies on a planet that belonged to neither. The damaged scout ship offered meager shelter, but it was better than the approaching storm Adrian could see brewing on the horizon. Inside the cramped medical bay, Calera regained consciousness with a violent start, immediately attempting to push herself up despite her injuries. "Easy," Adrian cautioned, gently pressing her back onto the examination table. 3 broken ribs, significant blood loss, and what appears to be plasma burns across your left side. Kalira's amber eyes blazed with contempt. You've brought double shame upon me, human. First your touch, then treating me like some helpless creature. She winced, betraying her stoic facade. My squadron will return for me. Adrian busied himself preparing regenerative bandages, careful to maintain a clinical demeanor. Your ship's emergency beacon was destroyed. And based on the blast pattern, it wasn't an accident. He met her gaze directly. Someone wanted to ensure you weren't found. A shadow crossed Kalira's face, quickly masked by practiced indifference. Impossible. Vexari do not betray their own. Evidence suggests otherwise, Adrian replied, activating a medical scanner. I need to remove portions of your armor to treat the worst injuries. I'll be as respectful as possible. Kalira turned her face away, jaw clenched. Do what you must. My disgrace is already complete. Working methodically, Adrian removed the shattered pieces of her biomechanical armor, revealing more of her silver-blue skin beneath. The Vexari physiology was remarkably similar to human anatomy, despite superficial differences, an evolutionary convergence that had always fascinated xenobiologists. Your medical technology is primitive, Kalira observed, watching him prepare a regenerative serum. Adrian smiled slightly, yet effective enough to save your life. As he worked, the tension in the small cabin gradually shifted from hostile to merely uncomfortable. The storm outside intensified, battering the damaged hull with strange crystalline precipitation that created an almost musical resonance. Why did you help me? Kalira finally asked. Our species have been enemies for generations. I would have left you to die. Adrian applied the last bandage before answering. Would you? Or is that what you're supposed to say? He gestured to a small storage compartment. I found these in your armor. Holographic images. Family. Kalira's expression softened momentarily before hardening again. My younger sister. She hasn't yet taken warrior vows. She hesitated. The images are forbidden. Sentimentality is weakness. Yet you kept them, Adrian observed. Their conversation was interrupted by a proximity alert. Something large was circling the crash site. Adrian checked the external cameras to see massive 6-limbed predators prowling around the ship, attracted by the scent of blood. Nexera hunters, Kalira explained, attempting again to sit up. They hunt in packs and can tear through metal given enough time. Adrian helped her achieve a sitting position, noting how she flinched at his touch despite accepting it. The communications array is damaged. I was hoping to repair it enough to send a distress signal. To whom? Your people or mine? Kalira asked pointedly. Either way, one of us becomes a prisoner. The ship shuddered as one of the creatures slammed against the hull, testing for weaknesses. Adrian checked his weapon systems. Minimal power, enough for perhaps 2 defensive bursts. We don't have much choice, he said. We need to work together, or neither of us survives this planet. Kalira's gaze flickered to the creatures outside, then back to Adrian. You trusted me enough to sleep while I was unconscious. You could have restrained me. Would you have preferred that? It would have been logical, she admitted. Our military teaches that humans are deceitful and weak. You've proven inconsistent with that teaching. Adrian accessed the ship's systems, bringing up a holographic display of their location. There's an abandoned research outpost about 12 kilometers north. If we can reach it, there might be a functional communication system. We? Kalira questioned, one eyebrow raised. Yes, we, Adrian confirmed. You know this planet better than I do, and I have medical supplies you need. Together, our chances improve significantly. Outside, the Nexera hunters grew more aggressive, their claws beginning to leave scratch marks on the viewport. Time was running short. Kalira attempted to stand, swaying slightly before Adrian steadied her with a hand on her elbow. This time, she didn't pull away immediately. "Very well, Lieutenant Mercer," she said formally. "A temporary alliance until we reach safety." Adrian nodded, recognizing the significant concession from the proud warrior. "We leave at first light, Commander Nixteris." As they prepared for the difficult journey ahead, Calera watched Adrian inventorying supplies, her expression thoughtful. "You said your name was Adrian." "Yes." She tested the name, the unfamiliar human syllables strange on her tongue. "Adrian," she repeated quietly, as if crossing some invisible boundary simply by speaking his name. Outside, the twin moons of Taravik illuminated the hunting Nexera, while inside, two enemies from worlds apart began the delicate process of seeing each other as something more than hereditary foes. The harsh landscape of Taravik stretched before them like an artist's fevered dream. Jagged crystal formations jutting from copper soil, vegetation that retracted defensively as they passed. Adrian and Calera had been traveling for 6 hours, making slow progress toward the abandoned research outpost. Calera moved with increasing difficulty, her injuries demanding rest despite her stubborn determination. Adrian noticed her faltering pace but knew better than to mention it directly. "Let's take a break," he suggested casually, gesturing toward a small outcropping that offered shade from the punishing dual suns. "I need to check our coordinates." Calera gave him a knowing look. "Your considerate deception is unnecessary. I recognize my limitations." Nevertheless, she accepted the opportunity to rest, lowering herself carefully onto a flat rock. Adrian offered her a water container. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and he noticed she no longer flinched at the brief contact. "Your medical technology works well," she acknowledged, gesturing to her healing wounds. "I didn't expect to recover this quickly." "Human technology has its merits," Adrian replied with a small smile. "Just as Vexari battle tactics are unmatched in the galaxy." A comfortable silence settled between them as they surveyed the alien landscape. The distant cry of a flying creature echoed across the valley, haunting and beautiful. "You still haven't told me what happened to your squadron," Adrian ventured carefully. Calera's expression darkened. "Internal politics. I questioned our High Command's interpretation of the ceasefire terms." She traced a pattern in the dust with her finger. "I suggested cooperation rather than preparation for renewed conflict might be worth considering. That doesn't seem like reason enough for attempted murder." "It is when your father is Supreme Commander Nix Fallon and expects absolute loyalty," she said bitterly. "Family standing above all else is our way." Suggesting peaceful relations with humans was unforgivable heresy. Adrian absorbed this revelation. "So you're royalty among your people." Calera laughed, a sound Adrian hadn't heard from her before, surprisingly melodic. "Not royalty. Military aristocracy. My bloodline is engineered for warfare, selectively bred for generations." She studied her own hand as if seeing it anew. "I was meant to be perfect, the ideal warrior who would one day lead our forces against humanity. And instead, you're here with me," Adrian observed. "Life has a strange way of defying expectations." Their eyes met, holding for a moment longer than necessary before Calera looked away. "We should continue," she said, rising to her feet with newfound determination. As they resumed their journey, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Another crystalline storm approaching rapidly. The temperature began dropping precipitously. "We won't reach the outpost before that hits," Adrian noted with concern. "We need immediate shelter." Calera surveyed their surroundings, then pointed toward a small cave entrance partially hidden by strange, undulating vegetation. "There. Nexera hunters avoid those caves." "Why?" Adrian asked skeptically. "Thermal vents. The temperature inside is uncomfortable for them," she explained. "For us, it will be suitable." The cave was warm indeed, heated by glowing mineral deposits that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. The effect was almost mystical, casting soft blue light across the stone walls. Outside, the storm unleashed its fury, sealing them inside until it passed. Adrian set up a small heat generator while Calera examined the cave. These markings, she called, gesturing to intricate patterns etched into the wall. Their ancient Vexari script from before space travel. Adrian joined her, careful to maintain respectful distance. What do they say? It's a marriage ritual, she translated, her voice taking on a curious softness. Two warriors from feuding clans who found sanctuary here during a territorial war. Her fingers traced the symbols. They chose each other over ancient hatreds. The intimate space, the glowing light, and the ancient story created a moment of profound connection between them. Adrian watched as Calera's usual rigid posture relaxed slightly. Among humans, he said quietly, touch is how we communicate when words fail us. It's comfort, safety, connection. Calera turned to face him fully. Among Vexari, touch is reserved only for those we trust completely. Our skin contains receptors that intensify sensations. She hesitated. That's why contact with enemies is forbidden. It creates vulnerability. And yet here we are, Adrian said softly. Something shifted in Calera's amber eyes. With deliberate slowness, she extended her hand. Palm up, a clear invitation. Adrian placed his hand gently against hers, feeling a slight electrical tingle where their skin met. I was taught to hate what you are, she whispered, not pulling away. Not who you are. Outside, the crystalline storm created haunting music as fragments collided. Inside the ancient cave, two beings from worlds apart discovered that forbidden touch could bridge the distance between stars and hearts. The storm will last until morning, Calera said, her voice barely audible above the tempest outside. Adrian's response was equally quiet. Then we have time to learn each other's ways. As the bioluminescent light pulsed around them, casting shadows that danced like ancient spirits, Calera stepped closer, breaking every law of her people with a simple truth. Connection transcends boundaries, even those written in the stars. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Dawn broke with alarming swiftness on Teravik, the twin suns casting dual shadows across the landscape as Adrian and Calera emerged from the cave. Something had changed between them during the night. Glances held longer, movements synchronized unconsciously, the careful distance once maintained now closed. We should reach the outpost by midday, Adrian said, consulting his navigation device. The research facility appeared as a small blip on the holographic display. Calera nodded, adjusting the makeshift armor Adrian had helped repair using salvaged parts. The valley ahead is exposed. We should move quickly. She paused, scanning the horizon with practiced vigilance. Something feels wrong. Adrian had learned to trust her instincts. What is it? Too quiet. The native birds should be calling. Calera unsheathed her ceremonial blade, the one possession she had refused to leave behind. We're being tracked. They moved with increased caution through the crystalline formations, maintaining silence as the outpost gradually came into view. A weathered structure nestled against a cliff face, abandoned decades ago during the first human Vexari conflicts. It appears intact, Adrian whispered hopefully. The attack came without warning. A precision shot from camouflaged positions, plasma energy crackling past Adrian's head. Calera tackled him to the ground as three armored Vexari warriors materialized from concealed positions, their weapons trained on the pair. Commander Nix Terrace, the leader addressed Calera in their native tongue, which Adrian's translator rendered into stilted English. Your father will be disappointed to learn of your survival. More so of your companionship. Calera rose slowly, positioning herself between Adrian and the warriors. Lieutenant Vrex, I should have known my father would send his favorite assassin to complete the mission. Vrex's silver-blue features twisted into contempt. Look how far the mighty have fallen. Consorting with human filth, bearing his touch. He gestured to the other warriors. Secure them both. The human for interrogation, the traitor for execution. As the warriors advanced, Adrian caught Kalira's subtle hand signal. 3 fingers extended, then clenched. He remembered her teaching him Vexuri battle signals during the night. 3 seconds, then dive right. "I am Kalira Nixteris," she announced formally, standing tall despite her injuries. "Daughter of the Supreme Commander, bearer of the blood mark of Vexuri Prime." Her voice rang with authority. "I invoke the ancient right of Jax Varai." The warriors hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Vrex laughed coldly. "The combat challenge. You're injured and disgraced. You have no rights. Yet you fear accepting," Kalira taunted, her finger discreetly tapping 3 times against her thigh. Adrian tensed, ready. On the 3rd tap, he dove right while Kalira lunged forward with impossible speed, her blade slicing through Vrex's armor before he could react. Adrian rolled to cover, drawing his emergency blaster and disabling one warrior with a precisely aimed shot. The battle was brutal and swift. Kalira moved like liquid lightning despite her injuries, her combat training evident in every calculated strike. Within moments, 2 warriors lay unconscious while Vrex remained on his knees, Kalira's blade at his throat. "Your father will hunt you until his dying breath," Vrex spat. "And the human will be dissected for scientific study." Kalira's expression hardened. "Tell my father I have found a truth worth more than blind loyalty." With a precise strike, she rendered Vrex unconscious, then turned to Adrian. "We have minutes before their backup arrives. The outpost is compromised." "There's another option," Adrian said urgently. "The ancient temple we saw from the ridge. If your people consider it sacred." "The Temple of Vorin," Kalira finished. "Yes, even my father wouldn't authorize weapons fire there." "But Adrian," her voice softened, "by helping me escape, you've committed treason against your own people. There's no going back." Adrian took her hand, feeling the now familiar electrical tingle where their skin connected. Some choices transcend duty. They fled toward the ancient temple, a majestic structure carved directly into a mountain of crystal. Inside, millennia of Vexuri history surrounded them. Intricate murals depicting wars, peace treaties, and cosmic journeys. The air hummed with energy from the crystal formations. As they secured the massive doors behind them, Kalira finally allowed herself to acknowledge her reopened wounds, blood seeping through her makeshift bandages. "Let me help you," Adrian said softly, guiding her to a stone altar at the temple's center. As he treated her injuries, Kalira watched his face with newfound wonder. "You fought against your own interests to protect me," she said quietly. "Why?" Adrian's hands paused in their work. "Because some connections matter more than the conflicts that came before them." The temple's crystals seemed to pulse in response to their words, casting rainbow patterns across their faces. Kalira reached up, tracing the contours of Adrian's face with feather-light touches. "On my world, there is a belief that souls are formed from the same cosmic dust," she whispered. "That when 2 find each other across the void, it is not chance but destiny." Adrian leaned closer, the last barriers between them dissolving like stardust. "On Earth, we call that falling in love." Their lips met in a kiss that defied generations of hatred. Human and Vexuri, enemies no more. The electrical sensation of Kalira's touch intensified, creating a connection that transcended physical boundaries, awakening sensations neither had experienced before. In the sacred space of the ancient temple, surrounded by the history of her people, Kalira made her choice, not the path of duty or tradition, but one forged in understanding and impossible love. Outside, search parties would be closing in, 2 worlds would be demanding their allegiance, but within these crystal walls, they had found something worth fighting for: each other. The temple's light embraced them as they surrendered to feelings stronger than ancient feuds, their forbidden union becoming a silent prayer for peace in a cosmos divided by war. The neural transmitter activated with a soft pulse, sending its signal across subspace frequencies. Adrian stepped back from the ancient temple's central altar, now retrofitted with components salvaged from his emergency beacon. "It's done," he announced, turning to Calera. "The message will reach both human and Vexari outposts within the neutral zone. Whether anyone responds." He left the sentence unfinished. Calera stood by the temple's massive crystalline window, her silhouette framed by the light of Terevek's setting suns. 3 days had passed since their escape from Vrex and his squad. 3 days of deepening connection, of planning their next move, of choosing a path neither had imagined possible. "Someone will come," she said with quiet certainty. "The question is whether they'll arrive as rescuers or executioners." Adrian moved to join her, his hand finding hers in a gesture that now felt as natural as breathing. The electrical tingle of her touch had become a comfort rather than a surprise. "The message contained truth, Calera. Your father, my superiors. They need to see that there's another way forward." She turned to face him, amber eyes reflecting the sunset's glow. 2 soldiers, sworn enemies, finding common ground might not be enough to end generations of conflict. "It's a beginning," Adrian insisted. "You were willing to question everything you'd been taught. Others might follow that example." The temple hummed with energy as day transitioned to night, the bioluminescent crystals awakening to bathe the ancient space in soft blue light. In this sacred place, they had found not just shelter but revelation. In each other's arms, in shared dreams, in the vision of a future where their peoples might coexist. "They're coming," Calera said suddenly, her enhanced senses detecting what Adrian's could not yet perceive. Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. Adrian activated the temple's exterior sensors, confirming her statement. 3 vessels, 1 human diplomatic cruiser and 2 Vexari warships, were descending toward their location. "This is it," he said, squeezing her hand. "Whatever happens, I don't regret a moment." Calera's expression softened. "Nor do I, Adrian Mercer." They stepped outside the temple as the ships landed in formation around the sacred site, a deliberate choice of neutral ground where ancient taboos prevented bloodshed. The human vessel opened first, revealing Admiral Helena Frost, her diplomatic insignia gleaming against her dark uniform. "Lieutenant Mercer," she called, her voice carrying across the crystalline landscape. "You've caused quite the interstellar incident." From the larger Vexari vessel emerged an imposing figure Adrian recognized immediately from intelligence briefings. Supreme Commander Nix Valen, Calera's father. His resemblance to his daughter was striking despite his battle-scarred features. "Calera Nix Terrace," he addressed her formally, ignoring Adrian completely. "You stand accused of treason against your bloodline and contamination by human touch." Calera stepped forward, still holding Adrian's hand. "Father, Admiral Frost, we requested this meeting not as prisoners but as emissaries." Admiral Frost's eyebrow raised slightly. "Emissaries? You're a scout pilot, Lieutenant, not a diplomat." "Perhaps that's exactly what makes him qualified," came a new voice as a third figure emerged from the human vessel. Ambassador Chen, the diplomatic corps' most respected negotiator. Supreme Commander Nix Valen's expression remained stone cold. "My daughter has been corrupted by human influence. This meeting is merely a courtesy before we reclaim her for proper judgment." "With respect, Commander," Ambassador Chen interjected smoothly. "Your daughter and Lieutenant Mercer have achieved something unprecedented, genuine understanding between our species. That warrants attention, not punishment." Adrian stepped forward. "We've prepared a proposal for a new framework of cooperation, beginning with joint research initiatives on neutral worlds like Terevek." "Preposterous," Nix Valen dismissed. "The Vexari do not collaborate with lesser species." "Father," Calera said, her voice carrying the authority of her birthright despite her technically disgraced status. "I've seen humanity through more than propaganda. I've witnessed courage, compassion, and honor equal to any Vexari warriors." She released Adrian's hand and approached her father directly, a bold move that caused his guards to tense. "You taught me that a true leader must see clearly beyond prejudice. I ask you now to demonstrate that wisdom." Something flickered across the Supreme Commander's face, perhaps recognition of the strength in his daughter's stance, unbowed despite her injuries, and alleged disgrace. Admiral Frost exchanged glances with Ambassador Chen before addressing both parties. Perhaps we should continue this discussion inside the temple. Sacred ground has historically provided clarity in difficult negotiations. What followed was unlike any diplomatic exchange in the troubled history between humans and Vexari. Not sterile discussions in formal chambers, but raw, honest conversation in an ancient place of power. Adrian and Kalira shared their experiences, the truths they'd discovered about each other's cultures, the common ground they'd found despite all odds. As night deepened on Terevik, something shifted in the atmosphere of the temple. Supreme Commander Nick Spallon, watching his daughter speak with passion and intelligence about a new vision for their peoples, gradually lost the rigid hostility he'd arrived with. The ancient texts speak of a time before division, he finally acknowledged, gesturing to the temple murals, when Vexari considered strength to be measured in wisdom rather than conquest. Ambassador Chen nodded respectfully. Earth's history contains similar lessons, hard-learned through centuries of conflict. By dawn, an unprecedented agreement had been reached, a pilot program of scientific and cultural exchange, beginning with a joint research base on Terevik itself. Not peace yet, but a path toward understanding. As the diplomatic parties prepared to depart, Supreme Commander Nick Spallon approached Adrian privately. "You touched what was forbidden," he said, his voice low. "Yet my daughter stands taller for it." Adrian met his gaze steadily. "Some boundaries exist to be questioned, Commander." The imposing Vexari leader studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "She has chosen a difficult path. If you walk it with her, know that the journey will not be easy." "The most meaningful ones rarely are," Adrian replied. Across the temple, Kalira was engaged in conversation with Admiral Frost, their discussion animated yet respectful. Seeing them together, human and Vexari, speaking as equals, crystallized everything Adrian had come to believe during his time on this planet. When the ships departed Terevik, Adrian and Kalira left together aboard a joint mission vessel, the first of its kind, bearing insignia from both worlds. Their assignment was officially to establish the research base that would serve as neutral ground for future exchanges. Unofficially, they were living proof that connection could transcend the deepest divisions. That touch, once forbidden, could become a bridge between worlds. As their ship ascended toward the stars, Kalira gazed at the planet that had changed everything. "Do you think it will last? This fragile peace we started?" Adrian wrapped his arm around her shoulders, feeling the now familiar electrical response of her skin against his. "I don't know, but some things, once begun, create their own momentum." She turned to face him, the warrior who had found something worth more than victory. "Like us." His answer was a kiss that still felt like breaking every rule in the universe, and simultaneously, like coming home to a truth written in the stars long before either of them existed. "Especially like us," he whispered against her lips as their ship carried them toward a future neither could have imagined alone, but both now couldn't envision any other way. On the bridge display, Terevik receded behind them, a copper and crystal jewel suspended in the void, the unlikely birthplace of a love that defied ancient hatreds, and perhaps the first chapter in a new story for two species who had forgotten they all came from the same cosmic dust.